From loving love to whatever we're about to get to in this video, it wouldn't be a post-Valentine's Day breakup without a half-drunken rant to my mates a week later. Internet, let's talk about my Survivor pain points. Let's see if this video gets blocked before you have time to finish watching it. While I absolutely love Survivor and all it's brought into my life over the past decades, it is fair to say it's not perfect. It's never been, and there is always room for improvement. In my previous video, I talked about all the things I love about it, the good stuff, but now let's put the shoe on the other foot and get to the bad. The stuff I don't like. Dare I say, the stuff I hate. This is not a ranking or a top 5 or anything of that sort. It's just a discussion about what I don't like about the show. And before I get to it, feel free to let me know in the comments what you don't like. Perhaps the most glaring aspect of the show I don't care for, at least on the surface, is how many apparent budget cuts are happening on a consistent basis. And I will readily admit that this could be a shallow take. I can't confirm the cuts because I don't have access to that info. I think it's just pretty obvious when back during season 33, the show decided to cut a deal with the Fijian government to stay in Fiji as long as possible. It ultimately saved a lot of money and made things a lot easier for the producers. And while Fiji is beautiful and I would love to go there one day, for the 32 seasons prior, Survivor moved location often and it was a really cool part of each new season. It contributed to giving each season its own identity. Starting with season 19, the show began to shoot back to back with the same location used twice, but it wasn't as noticeable with all the themes. But with season 33 and onward, it's become a lot more noticeable, and after over 10 straight seasons in the same place, on the same beaches, in the same environment, it's really started to feel generic. It's also largely contributed to why the rewards on the show haven't had any variety since season 32. And with the new era, it's become just about the sanctuary, where good things happen.
The three of you will go to the sanctuary, where good things happen, and enjoy an afternoon of rotisserie chicken.
I like good things. I like good things. I like good things. Good things are good.
Oh, look at that roasted chicken. Thank you, Jeff. My God.
I have not eaten chicken for 15 years.
And so following their decision to stay in Fiji back in 2016, after COVID in 2020, the show reduced its length to 26 days from 39. And while on paper, I don't really care about that because I don't notice it or think it changes the seasons that much. I do think, however, it's another sign of parts of the show getting chipped away little by little. Like how the iconic intro and the theme song were removed after season 38, only brought back recently because the episodes are currently 90 minutes due to the writer's strike. I think it's really easy to handwave away any one of these aspects as insignificant, as none of them change the show to a dramatic degree. But when combined, I start to feel like the seasons do blend together a lot more than they ever have. Even the season themes are gone. Which is funny because when they were around, people complained about them endlessly, but now they are gone and many fans want them back. And look, I don't think Jeff or the producers necessarily want this either, but I don't think they have the power to make the calls to do anything about it. I think these calls come from higher up, and Jeff has to make do with what he's given. Perhaps it's just a sign of the future of TV, but either way, I find it unfortunate and I don't like it. Again, none of these individual aspects are inherently bad. If Survivor was always 26 days, I wouldn't mind it now. If it was always in Fiji, I probably wouldn't care that it is now. But because there is a very long established precedent, it's tough to ignore the reason all of this is happening and the general malaise it's brought with it. Another aspect of repetition that I don't think fits into the same category of what I just talked about is the challenges, and how for a long time I've been mostly indifferent, I guess, to a lot of them, especially pre-merge when it's all a similar obstacle course to retrieve bags of puzzle pieces. It's not bad TV at any given moment, but it does feel unmemorable just about every time. I don't think the post-merge challenges are as bad, but they do rely a lot on players just kind of standing there balancing a ball. Recent seasons have brought back classics to give the episodes more variety, but Overall, I can't emphatically say that I look forward to any challenge despite having a long series on challenge hacks. I would love more variety across the board.
For today's challenge, you're gonna race over and under a series of obstacles until you get to the sled. You're gonna load your sled with very heavy puzzle pieces. Then you will drag your chest and boat across the track. One player will then dig under a log and release a ramp. Then, using a long rope, you're gonna pull that chest to the end of the track, where two different players will use those keys to unlock and then solve a massive survival puzzle.
I actually think challenges could be, or maybe even should be, the next big evolution to the show in some way. Redesign how they play into the game, especially post-merge when they don't have much impact besides a single player being immune. For some reason, I get this sense they could be overhauled to have more impact, beyond, of course, the fire-making challenge at the Final Four completely removing the vote. I don't want more iterations of that. Don't touch the vote. The vote absolutely needs to stay. Which, speaking of the devil, is another thing I hate, how the show has slowly removed the potential for interesting endgame votes. It started with the inclusion of the Final 3 in Season 13, and it evolved even more with the Final 4 in Season 35. I don't think everyone's going to agree with me here, but I prefer the Final 2 as I find the Final 3 vote to be one of the most unique and engaging votes of any season. I also think it just makes sense for the sake of the game. You get down to the last two remaining, and then the jury basically votes out the runner-up, declaring the sole survivor. This also goes hand in hand with the larger jury size. The larger the jury, the more likely the vote will be unanimous. And the reason for that is because each jury vote has less value with more jurors, so groupthink really kicks in. I have had fans send me comprehensive data examining this factor, and maybe one day I'll make a video on it, because it's just not a good change. You should keep the jury to the final 7, to the last most relevant 7 people voted out. One last major aspect to the show I do not like is parts of the editing. In my previous video where I talked about the things I love about Survivor, I talked up the good parts of the editing, but I do have some issues with it too. The first one is how glaringly clear the show is in its bias towards men in screen time. The Survivor producers absolutely love to feature men. It is all about the men. Just guys being dudes.
Observed the bro out only from an anthropological distance.
And don't get me wrong, as a guy dude bro myself, I get it, we're cool, we have things to talk about, but you know, man, the data is out there comparing screen time, confessional counts, and it is heavily lopsided. Superfans of the show have always known this is the case. It was the case 15 years ago, and it really hasn't changed much. Female winners are drastically shortchanged in favor of male winners, and in many cases, this stretches to every placement on most seasons. I understand when there are some male players, let alone winners, who give great TV, but I think it's more a case of the overall quantity. I'm not saying take time away from them so much as spread the wealth. And you might think a couple of times it's just a coincidence, but after 45 seasons, it stops kind of feeling like a coincidence. It kind of feels like the editors have no faith in a lot of the women they cast, or they have no faith in the audience to want to see them, which almost feels like an indirect indictment on the casting team.
And for whatever reason, we're loaded with interesting guys. Now, maybe that says something about our casting process.
Also, I think that because Survivor has trended towards advantages and idols being really popular, the idol finding discrepancy between the genders is wild. From season 11 to 38, the numbers heavily were in favor of the men. I get you need to show the idol being found, but I'm not sure that's an excuse.
15% of all hidden immunity idols have been found by women, and we know that Survivor plays men and women equally, so we should be finding idols equally. And so I want to help boost that stat up.
Good luck. You wouldn't need a ladder to do it.
And combining what I just talked about with the editing, the last aspect of the show that I don't like is how I can't always trust the editing or storytelling to tell me the truth. And you know, I kind of get it, it's the nature of the beast because we don't have a live feed on the island, but still, as someone who talks a lot about the show and reads others' interpretations of events in the game, a lot of commentary tends to devolve into many variations of what actually went down on any given episode. I do try my best to parse through the edit and the players' post-season recaps to arrive at what I believe is most likely resembling reality, but even then, I know it's never set in stone. This observation keeps the discussion never ending, because some people place all their trust in the edit, others don't. But there's always a mix of fans talking about the same thing with varying degrees of reliable and unreliable information. When I make my top 5 videos, I rely on this methodology to reach conclusions, and I admit it's never 100% solid. Things can and sometimes do change on a dime, but it's what I believe makes the most sense with the information I've parsed through. But then I compare it to the other show I regularly talk about, Big Brother, and how I generally feel comfortable with a lot of analysis because we have the live feeds, which shows a lot of the game on a second-to-second basis. Like an old man yelling at a cloud, again, it's the nature of the beast with Survivor, but I do wish the commentary could be more concrete and the edit more trustworthy. I think it heavily skews a large portion of the audience in one direction when the reality is it is never that simple. And as someone who has been involved in editing for over a decade now, I know firsthand how easily it can craft any story at once to sell a show, and that a vast majority of the audience will neglect to understand that it is bias or underestimate how powerful it can be on their views, or just never notice it at all. And so those are a lot of the things I hate about Survivor, or at least I strongly dislike. I don't think I'm usually very negative about the show, but like anything I love, I will also be critical of it too. Again, let me know what you don't care for about Survivor and why, and if you agree or disagree with some of my own personal gripes. A big thank you to my patrons for being here still in spite of my grievances, and in the end, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the half-drunken rant. Don't forget to take it easy on your way out, and I will see you in the next one. Once I hand wave all of this away as me being nitpicky and biased. Jeffrey, you won again.
Oh, what's his name? The little hobbity guy that was with Parvati that no one really.
Oh, Russell. Russell would have to adapt his game.
Yeah.
Even though if he listens to this, he'll say, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm the greatest of all time. But he would have to adapt, but he might be able to.
Genuinely looks like an evil hobbit, Billy. If you can picture an evil hobbit.
I can.
Russell,
Absolutely.
if you came back and played it and you won a 26-day season,
I would be upset.